ready.
You guys ready? Ready. You'll do the invocation.
Yeah.
All right, well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this Monday, May 6th public meeting of the Board of Garrett County Commissioners. I want to welcome everybody in attendance and everybody tuning in online. If everyone would please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then Commissioner Titchener will lead us in the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would bow for a word of prayer, please. Precious Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for this day that you've given us. We thank you for all that's here today, Lord, and we just continue to ask your guidance and direction with everything we say and do here. Lord, we'll continue to praise and glorify your precious holy name. Amen.
Please be seated. Mr. Knoll, any additions, deletions, corrections to the public meeting agenda?
There are none.
Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, agenda approved by mutual consent. Everybody got a copy of the minutes in advance of the meeting. Any questions or concerns to the minutes? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, minutes approved by mutual consent. We have several proclamations to start the meeting. The first one we have is for EMS week. Is anyone here for EMS? Let's see. We'll go ahead and do the proclamation, and then we will make sure that the appropriate people get this.
Sam's wife just had a baby.
Yeah, Sam Grant, our director's wife, just had a baby, so he's excused from this meeting. It's more important for him to be there than to get this proclamation. I'm sure his wife would very much agree with that. The 50th anniversary of EMS Week, which is May 19th through the 25th, honoring our past, forging our future. Whereas emergency medical services are a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury, and whereas emergency medical services have grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine, and whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. And whereas the members of emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills, and whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical service providers by designating an Emergency Medical Services Week, now therefore we, the Board of Garrett County Commissioners, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim on its 50th anniversary the week of May 19th through the 25th, 2024 as Emergency Medical Services Week in Garrett County, signed by Commissioners Savage, Titchener, and myself. And we do absolutely thank all of those who are involved in EMS in any way, shape, or form for the hours and hours of time to better their community. We will make sure that that gets to the appropriate spot. Next up, we have a proclamation for Children's Mental Health Acceptance Week. Do we have anyone here who will be accepting this? Several. Excellent. So we will invite everyone up for that. So I have two, and I have a feeling you're going to accept both of them. So we have one for Children's Mental Health Acceptance Week, and we have one for Mental Health Acceptance Month. And I think everyone in green is here for that. So if you all would like to come forward.
Even if you're not in green.
Yeah, even if you're not in green and this is what you're here for, please come forward.
Kevin, I want you to look, sir. You look like you're wearing blue in that thing. It's obviously green.
It's very obvious.
But it's
Larry's the most
blue over
green.
there.
Larry's electric.
Or am I colorblind?
It's green. I mean,
I know it's definitely green, but it looks blue in there.
So we'll start out with the proclamation for Children's Mental Health Acceptance Week, which is May 5th through May 11th, 2024. Whereas good mental health is a key component in a child's healthy development, and Children's Mental Health Acceptance Week provides the opportunity to focus on this important matter while celebrating the accomplishments of children and families affected by mental health concerns. And whereas according to the United States Department of Health and Human Services, 1 in 5 children is diagnosed with a mental health condition. And whereas research has shown early identification and appropriate treatment of mental disorders among children and adolescents provide them better opportunities to lead full and productive lives. And whereas children and youth with mental health challenges and their families benefit from access to timely services and supports that are family-driven, youth-guided, and culturally appropriate, they also benefit from the integration of behavioral health and primary care education and child welfare. Whereas it is important that children and adolescents, along with their families and communities, learn about warning signs of mental health disorder and where to obtain necessary assistance and treatment. Whereas obtaining a full and accurate diagnosis of a child requires gathering information from diverse sources, including the family, school, and others involved with the child. And now, therefore, we, the Board of Garrett County Commissioners, hereby recognize May 5th through May 12th, 2024 as Children's Mental Health Acceptance Week in Garrett County and call this observance to the attention of all of our citizens. Proclaimed on this 6th day of May 2024, signed by Commissioners Tichenor, Savage, and myself. And how about I give this to you? All right. And in addition to that, we also have a proclamation for Mental Health Acceptance Month of May 2024, whereas mental health is a part of overall health and sustains an individual's thought processes, relationships, productivity, and ability to adapt to change. And whereas 1 in 25 adults live with mental illness, such as major depression, bipolar disorder, or schizophrenia, roughly 1/2 of chronic mental illness begin by the mid-teens and 3/4 by mid-20s. And whereas early identification and treatment can make a difference in successful management of mental illness and recovery, and whereas it is important to maintain mental health and to recognize the symptoms of mental illness and seek help when it is needed, and whereas every citizen community can help end the silence and stigma surrounding mental illness through public education and civic activities, Maryland remains engaged in a promise to address the challenges facing people with mental illness, and whereas Mental Health Awareness Month is an opportunity to increase public understanding of the importance of mental health to promote the identification and treatment of mental illness. Now, therefore, we, the Board of Garrett County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim May 2024 as Mental Health Acceptance Month in Garrett County and call this observance to the attention of all of our citizens. Signed by Commissioners Tichenor, Savage, and myself, proclaim this 6th day of May 2024. And I will hand this to you. And, anybody have anything they'd like to say?
I want to invite everybody in the room as well as the commissioners. We're going to be having a color run walk on May 18th at the Lighthouse from 2 to 4. If you don't want to get color on you, we're going to have a different way that you can go. If you do want to have fun and get some color on you, you can join me and go the other way. So that's May 18th from 2 to 4, and Lighthouse is also going to be having a craft show that same day.
Great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we will have a public hearing to talk about CDBG items. So can I get a motion to close the public meeting and open a public hearing? All right, we are now in the public hearing on CDBG, and I will invite Cindy Sharon up to facilitate that.
This public hearing provides an opportunity to obtain the views of citizens on community development, economic development, housing and homeless needs, and to offer citizens the opportunity to hear and review plans for applications for the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development, known as DHCD, their program Community Development Block Grant, CDBG. Citizens may discuss proposed projects and provide input on other needs to be considered. The state of Maryland's allocation of federal funds for community development projects for this year, 2025, is estimated at $8,165,000. Each year, up to $800,000 in competitive Maryland CDBG funding may be requested by the county and Garrett County municipalities, with the deadline this year being June 11th. The Board of County Commissioners updated its Citizen Participation Plan and its Residential Anti-Displacement and Relocation Assistance Plan that's required to be done every 5 years. The drafts of the plans are available for public review, and in fact we have a couple copies right here in front. The Maryland CDBG program provides public funds for activities which meet one of the following national objectives: benefit persons and households of low and moderate income, aid in the prevention or elimination of slum or blight, and meet other community development needs of an urgent nature. I know that Community Action had expressed in the future possibly getting Maryland CDBG funding for an affordable housing building improvements projects, basically to help with replacement of roofs on the various affordable housing developments. Although the county is not eligible to apply for Maryland CDBG funds at this time, most Garrett County municipalities are eligible to submit projects for this funding. Projects need to be fully expended within a 2-year period. I have to give updates on open Maryland CDBG projects, which include the Trout Run Wastewater Conveyance Project. Design engineering is approximately 75% complete. An amendment was processed for a time extension through December of this year. This project involves a number of easements and federal requirements to include specifications for Buy America. Also, the Maryland, the Homeless Assistance Program that's administered by Community Action, there's a current balance of $56,498 that's going to be paid to Maryland DHCD to close out the revolving loan fund. Also, in regard to Meadows Housing, it continues to maintain full occupancy of its 90 rental units, and it's administered, of course, by Community Action. And then finally, Community Action has a program, Pathway to Homeownership Program. Funds were released for expenditure in October last year for down payment and closing cost assistance for new home buyers. There were newly increased income guidelines that became effective at the 1st of this month. One-person household can earn up to $48,550, and then a 4-person household can earn up to $69,300 each year. With this program, $187,000 of the $305,000 in leverage funding was expended. $6,500 of the $220,000 in Maryland CDBG funding was committed or expended. Right now, there's approximately 15 households that are in the pipeline to expend $90,000 in CDBG funding within the next 6 months. Contact Community Action at 301-334-9431 for additional information. Thank you.
All right, does anybody have any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, can I get a motion to close the public hearing and reopen the public meeting?
So moved.
All right, so we are now back in the public meeting, and the only item on the agenda left before we adjourn the public session to go into the budget presentations, which everyone in attendance is welcome to stay for. The budget presentations this evening are from the Ruth and Lowe Library, the Garrett County Chamber of Commerce, and the Garrett County Community Action Committee. I would also like to announce that our next public meeting will be here on Tuesday, May the 21st, and that will be the public hearing on the FY25 budget, which is what these budget presentations and requests are on. So that will begin at 4 o'clock. Again, that will be here. Then there'll be a comment period open on the proposed budget with budget adoption in June. So, are there any questions or comments from the public on anything county related at this time? All right, hearing nothing, I'll take a motion to adjourn, and we'll move into budget presentations.
So moved.
All right, meeting adjourned. And first up on the budget presentations, we have Thomas Vos and the Ruth and Low Library.
Well, hello, folks. Good to see you all again today. And I appreciate the opportunity to come up and chat with you all today. And I just want to give you a bit of a summary as to what we've been up to since I saw you last. And I want to thank my board again for being so supportive and helpful. And so staff had an idea to come out and sing our request, actually. They offered, I said,
And then they
yeah.
left you to come and do it yourself.
Yeah. So we have several excellent musicians on staff, but I wasn't sure how well that would go over. So, but it was a very good year last year. And we'll pull up our stats here. Give me a second. Next slide would be great. Yes, this is our annual report that we do. It's teeny tiny, sorry, but our visit, it was a very good year last year, actually. Shaping up to be another very solid year again this year. Last year we had visits were up 16.9%. Questions that were answered, our reference questions, were up 15.9%. Checkouts were up 4%. And we offered 23% more programs, and we saw over 10% more people come. But best of all, from my perspective anyway, we had over 21% more new cards created. And so, yeah, that one made me happy. We're now up to 16,792 active borrowers, people who have used their card within the last 3 years. So, next slide, please. And of course, a lot of our success, though, has come from partnering up with other folks, whether it be Maryland Legal Aid to do our free legal assistance at the library, whether it be with the Vagabond to do our fun trivia night that seems to be fairly well received, whether it's with the Friendsville Quilters, who year after year make a wonderful quilt and auction it off for the Friendsville Library Project. More on that in a bit. But they help us deliver so much with fairly minimal funding, and we're very proud of that. If you could go to the next slide. For instance, our first LEGO League team that came in unprompted and made a library-specific project where they made these holographic boxes where you put your smartphone on and it gives you a little holographic presentation about their favorite book to help encourage reading, and they left those boxes with us. And again, this wasn't something that we even expected. They actually came at us out of the blue for that, and that was a wonderful feeling. Or whether it's the Maryland Food Bank. We are so proud to be able to partner with them for the mobile market. They get hundreds of people coming for that, and it's just great to be able to have them work with us, and we're very happy about that. Next slide, please. Or whether it's the ongoing Chromebooks project. You know, you can see our stacks of Chromebooks here, and we want to thank Cheryl and Nathaniel so much for helping make this happen and helping get so many Chromebooks out to people in the community. And we are still doing that for anybody who's still missing out. Next slide, please. And a virtual tourism grant that we received through the Library Services and Technology Act, a state grant that made possible a virtual tourism program that's available at the main library using a virtual reality helmet. You can go anywhere in the world, take a look around, see it for yourself, drive a train, fly a plane, all sorts of great things. And then we now, thanks to our partnership with the Western Maryland Regional Library, we're now able to check out Nintendo Switch games. That's a new thing we've been able to offer just this year. And then digitization is continuing, and that's another partnership. The Historical Society and the schools have partnered with us to help enable us to scan up all of the high school yearbooks going back all the way to the 50s. And we're trying to make sure that it's a nice complete set as much as possible, but it wouldn't have been made possible without those partners. This is what we have so far. Scanned up, we have, the yearbooks for Southern, Northern, several pre-Southern and Northern schools, and the Glade Star, of course, and the Republican. So we're going to keep plugging along with that. And then, let's see here. We've also got Friendsville. So yes, this is a design for Friendsville that we are planning to be starting construction on this October. It's going to be on the same site as the existing building. And we are, again, this is made possible with partners. Our partnership with State Senator Edwards and State Delegate Beitzel, who helped change the laws to help make the match rate feasible for this project. So it is coming along, and it's going to happen. And then Kitzmiller, another partnership. A Lowe's grant helped make this wonderful new frontage on the Kitzmiller area, and they made it so that we have a nice ramp for folks who need it, and it's a lot more welcoming too. And we have some nice, we have a nice little patio area in the front too that we were able to put some ice cream tables out in for outdoor seating. We're real happy about that. And but prices continue to increase, as you know, for things like fuel, healthcare, and much more. And we work to offset many of those increases to the prices that we're dealing with. We work to offset those with savings from other categories. We picked up whatever savings we can. And the Western Maryland Region, if you could back up one, I'm sorry. The Western Maryland Regional Library, they've been real helpful in that area. But the state hit us with an over 9% funding cut from state funds due to the change in wealth assessments that took place, and it impacted the funding formula. So we lost about $17,000 based on that. We also recently learned of a new law that will impact our ability to collect fines on children's materials. And we don't currently charge fines for children's materials that are returned late. But this change in the law would make it so that you cannot charge fines for children's materials checked out by adults either. And so that will impact our fines. Fines and fees are not much as far as our revenue goes, but every little bit helps or hurts right now. So as a result, we respectfully are requesting an increase of $46,508, which is about 3.7%. That would enable a cost of living increase for staff, as well as offset the loss in state funding. So yeah, go ahead, sorry. But fortunately, libraries are a good investment. Every year I like to run the numbers on our statistics and see exactly what amount the library delivers to its community. Because again, every book you check out has a value. Every program you attend has a value. And you can calculate those values out, and it's largely unchanged from last year. Every dollar that you invest in the library returns $4.19 to the community. And that's, it's nice to be consistent. Because like I said, it's about the same as it was last year. But it's always a highlight to figure that out. And 59% of the population now are library members. That's up from last year. Like I said, we got a whole bunch more new cards last year. And we do a lot for a little. I like to borrow a military term, I like to think of the library as a force multiplier. Somebody that helps other folks make their mission that much more effective. Next slide, though. So with this funding, we're going to work on our new strategic plan goals. We have a new strategic plan. I was working on it all year. And these are our main goals that are our big headings here. So develop a culture of reading. To foster human connection in a hybrid world. I'm very fond of that one because let's face it, people aren't connecting as much in person in the real world as they used to. And COVID kind of started that, but can you have a society that functions when you're not talking to each other? So that's part of it. Serve the county's educational needs with the flexibility that the library can offer. We can meet whatever the schools would like to have help with, and as well as whatever private groups would like to have help with as well. Look to the future. The next few years are likely to be a challenge, but we are very excited about the prospect of a new Friendsville library. And if you can do the next slide. We've already made some great progress on the Develop a Culture of Reading goal. I wanted to highlight a couple of these successes here. So some of you are familiar with our 1,000 books before kindergarten. You might see them pop up on our Facebook every now and then, and every student gets a who completes 1,000 books gets a wood book engraved with their name on it permanently. We are now up to 79 since the start of this program. So that's 79,000 books read. And with this Read a Classic, Earn a Button thing, we started that a couple years ago, just kind of on a lark, where you would, there are currently 163 books that we've designated as classics, and if you read that, you get its corresponding collectible button. And, you know, I figured this would be a fun little way to incentivize people to you know, try something different that maybe, I remember that book, maybe I should try that. We have currently given out over 930 buttons in the 2 years that this is, since this has started. Especially, and it's taken off really since we had a school and classes get in on it, and so they're reading the book as a class and they're getting a button too. And so we just introduced new prizes: a silver reader pin and a gold reader pin for the stellar folks out there. So yeah, that's again something that we're real proud of. Next slide, please. But most of all, we're proud of, again, making that human connection, that real world human connection. This was just in our last National Library Week. We have programs all the time, and we have our summer reading club coming up where we expect to have another big crowd like this at least a couple more times. Next slide, please. But we're always doing new things to get folks invested in their community, to get folks invested in reading, to get folks invested in new skills, new passions. And so, next slide, please. There's something for everybody at the library, and there always will be. And we're going to keep doing what we do and serving the public as best we can and making the best possible use of the resources that you folks have made available to us. I think I have a couple more there. There we go. Yeah, that tarantula was hilarious. And one more. And I wanted to thank you all very much again for considering our request and for having me out today.
Thank you, Thomas. Any questions?
Yeah.
Good. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next up, we have the Garrett County Chamber of Commerce. Andrew, you're up, buddy.
Good.
Gentlemen. First of all, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. County Administrator Mr. Nall, Commissioners Mr. Edwards Tichenal and Mr. Savage. I appreciate this opportunity. I know that these budgetary times are tough for everyone, and I just wanted to come today and share for a few moments what exactly, when we say the Chamber of Commerce, funding for that, what does that mean? But anyway, the first order of business that we do is we maintain staff, and we have the visitor center in McHenry. You know, that's the first point of contact for most people when they enter our county. They stop in and we have what we call tourism specialists that are there, and they'll have brochures, but people want to hike, bike, eat, you know, all these types of, you know, the other day I had some guys in, where can I turkey hunt? Well, that was a question I could answer. So I was able to do that. So that's a big thing of what we do. The first point of contact is the visitor center. The second thing we have is what we're going to call the Heritage Program. And the Heritage Program, there's 13 heritage areas in the state of Maryland. Now, not all of Garrett County is in the heritage area. There's different parts of it, but part of what we have is we have this nice magazine that's we're working at the moment and adding to. But this is something we would take to trade shows and so forth. But the point of the Heritage Program would be economic development through tourism. So the point of what we're trying to do is get people to Garrett County through our rich history of that. You'll notice if you look on Facebook, you'll find we put a couple social media posts up each month. I'm pretty happy to say we might get 500 to 1,000 likes on that, which I think is pretty good engagement. So what we do there is pretty important for tourism. One thing I'm really happy about is we have a grant that was made available to us from the Hogan administration. And we're going to use that grant money. We're going to put in a stationary kiosk in our lobby. And on that, we're going to be able, so say someone comes into town, or locals, it's welcome to everybody. But if someone comes in from out of town and they say, hey, we hear you have a fall foliage driving tour type of thing, well, they can come right up to that kiosk. They can put that in, look it up if they want. They can hit a button. It's going to print out the driving directions. In the fall, if you're not familiar, it's a thing called Turkey Trail. And that's all the restaurants around the county are available to put in. You don't have to be a member of the chamber to do this. You can put in about your restaurant, what you're serving. So someone could come in, hit a button, print out all the places for that, quilt things. It's all that type of thing. What's also exciting about that is we're going to have there's enough grant money to have a smaller kiosk. That'll be a travel kiosk. And we're going to be able to take that from event to event and share more of that good work. So that's a lot of what we do. That program is run by Amber Sanders. She's very excited. She's taken to it. She worked with the mini grants. I just won't take time to get into all that. The third thing we do is what we're going to call group sales. And this is run by Miss Holly Lane. Holly's doing very well with this. And what groups is about? Again, it's about tourism. It's about getting people to Garrett County. So this is, Holly has put together some day trips, if you will, for bus groups. She just recently attended the Pennsylvania Bus Association conference, where she laid out all kind of itineraries and so forth for people tour directors would come there. It wasn't open to the public. So the people that were there were people that host tours and so forth. So she went, has these itineraries. Maybe the day event would be, Branch Bender Cidery. It could be the Lavender Farm, just whatever to get people to town. The other thing we have as part of Holly's work is called the Wedding Guide. And I'm telling you, this is actually a pretty cool publication. I spent a lot of my life across the street, if you will, at the Oakmar Motel and the Oakland Motel. I had those for the biggest part of my life. And I'd always ask people, where are you from? And it was really neat. One of these people checked in, a whole big group of people, and the guy said, we're from Los Angeles. And I said, my gosh, who from here is from how did you get here from Los Angeles? Did someone grow up here? He said, no, we started in a publication, and we made a destination wedding. So I pretty well soon learned, like, oh my gosh, this advertising is pretty important stuff. So that's all part of Holly's work. The next big thing we do, and this is the biggest thing we do, the absolute biggest thing we do is our tourism. And that's run by Sarah Duck. Sarah does an amazing job. This is part of what Sarah's work is. It's actually, if you will, it's the official visitors and relocation guide. And this is actually, there's 55,000 of these printed out per year. She could better tell me where there's maybe 10,000 sent here to be distributed in certain areas. But Sarah is going to focus on like the Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Washington D.C., Baltimore, those types of things. And through the things that she does, she can target certain household incomes. She gets into certain zip codes, so she can better focus her money. I can be honest with you, Sarah's very frugal. She does a great job with her money. It's a lot of bang for the buck. But this is a lot of what we do. And Sarah felt the need in the last few years to add into our vacation relocation guide. It's called Small Town Trail. So if you'd actually get this publication, open it up to wherever, there's going to be a little spot about every little town in the county. They can write in whatever they want. We have it there. If you go through here and take a look at this particular publication, for the pictures that we put in this, about 1 out of 9 are of Deep Creek Lake. The rest are, Grantsville, Accident, Friendsville. We really made this inclusive of the whole county. So that's a large part of what we do there, and I'm just very proud of Sarah and her work. She's very diligent at what she does. The last thing we have is the Chamber of Commerce, and that's a small part of our funding. It's what we do. What I want to speak about, why I have the people online that can hear me, and I just want to talk about the culture change at the Chamber of Commerce. 3 years ago when I became board chair, I immediately started inviting Kim Durst to every one of our meetings. She's been diligent about coming. Here's something I don't think most people would know, but the county actually has grant dollars, agricultural type of thing. So if someone say they have they're growing corn, tomatoes, whatever, you see Kim, if you want to have a roadside sign, there's grant money to help you get roadside signs. There's also outdoor dining grants. There's, the next one doesn't last very long. It's some advertising grants. We publicize those so much. I know there are a few days and they're gone. But that's all, what I'm saying is I connected our Chamber of Commerce with county government. And I can tell you, things are going wonderfully well between us. Mr. Edwards comes every single meeting, and I tell you, it's enlightening to all of us because now we have a better handle on what's coming to town, you know, what's new projects, talk about different bridges and things. We're just very happy for this type of thing. So back to the tourism thing, you know, I'd just like to say, you know, it's easy to get caught up in, you know, we're really doing a good job with this, but you know, every night we all go home, flip on the TV, and I guarantee at some point tonight we're going to see a Burger King or a McDonald's commercial, we're going to see a Ford commercial, and you're thinking, we all know what all these things mean. But for some reason, these people spend hundreds of millions of dollars to stay relevant. And I hope we'll keep that focus on staying relevant. I will say this, I'm just going to compare our work for 2019 to 2023. You know, accommodations, first of all, 100% of the funding for what we're going to call the Chamber of Commerce, but it's all of these things under that name. I'm not sure the Chamber of Commerce is really the best name for what we're doing. But all of our funding comes from accommodation revenue. So you all, every July, get a Christmas card from the county saying, hey, here's your tax bill. I just want y'all, none of that's coming our way. So we have to work hard. It behooves us to make sure we keep working at tourism to get it here, because that's how our funding comes. But from 2019 to 2023, from what everyone has done, there was a 60% increase in accommodations revenue. We're very proud to be a part of that. We're so proud to represent you all and do what we can. We appreciate your help. If we would be so blessed, we're not asking for any raise in funding this year. We're asking for flat funding, and we feel very blessed for the years we've had it. You know, if we'd be blessed to have our flat funding this year, that'll be 7 years in a row we've received the same amount of funding, and we feel very blessed to have that. We're blessed for the relationships. So, can I answer any questions or anything?
Any questions? All right.
Thanks,
Andrew.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, and finally tonight on the budget presentations, we have Garrett County Community Action Committee. And Chris, you're up.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good to see you all. Thank you for having us. I have now been at Community Action for 4 months and have in that time figured out within the first 4 days, maybe 4 hours, how important this relationship is to our survival, and it's important. It's important. We relate to the towns. We still have the GCM meeting once a month, where all the mayors come together to talk about priorities for funding, and we maintain the Sustainable Communities Grant and do other things that help our towns to flourish. We're working on a project in Kitzmiller right now. We're assisting the library with being a good partner to provide temporary space while the library is under construction in Friendsville. And it's just been an amazing process for me over the last 4 months to see how integrated into almost every aspect of life in Garrett County Community Action is. And incredibly grateful to be a part of that. That being said, Community Action is a national body, began 60 years ago. So in January of this year was the 60th anniversary of President Johnson signing into legislation the War on Poverty. And community actions were then started all across the nation. This one started in 1965, a year later. So next year will be our 60th anniversary here in Garrett County. We are the foot soldiers in the War on Poverty. It's a poverty alleviation mechanism that the federal government envisioned to help people who were struggling with both the causes and the conditions of poverty in order to create a more equitable society in the United States of America. And interestingly, in my first 4 months, I have talked to at least a dozen leaders, people who are in high-level positions around the county who have said to me, I'm a product of Community Action Services. I lived in Garrett Land managed property when I was a kid. We didn't have anywhere to go. I went to Head Start. My children are in Head Start. You helped us get over a rough patch to pay our utilities and our rent, and now it's really remarkable. I've been caught off guard by how many people have said to me, yeah, I wouldn't be where I am. So truly, I'm so fortunate to be a part of this work. Our agent, we have several big buckets. We have our Department of Aging, which is one of the big asks that we make of the County Commission every year. We have a program called Garrett Neighbors, and I went out in my first couple of months. I wanted to do a listening session in each of our senior living facilities, and so I went out and participated in this program called Garrett Neighbors, and Garrett Neighbors, our coordinator Megan, called together the residents in those units. And we sat down and we talked. What's working for you? What's not working for you? And over and over, I hear from the residents, I was just sitting in my apartment and was depressed and wasn't doing anything. And once Garrett Neighbors started, now I'm out every day and I have friends in this facility and we go on trips. And we had a sock hop this year, and Stonecroft hosted us for a Valentine's luncheon. And those kind of things are life-changing for people who are in a senior living facility. They've had to leave their homes for whatever reason. Speaking of which, we had a program last year that kept 23 Garrett County seniors in their homes by providing occupational therapy, nursing services, and handyman services. We allowed 23 seniors to keep their housing, and that went so well that when our aging director applied for a new grant, which is actually about triple the amount of money, so about $400,000 will be coming into the county, and will help 60 seniors to stay in place with those same services over the next couple of years. And so when we talk about the funding at Community Action, it really is a leverage situation. The funding that we ask for from the commission ends up becoming so much more. We ask for 1.2 million, and it becomes 20 million by federal funding, state funding, and private funding that comes because we're here. And so we had going back to the programs that we do, we had a volunteer recognition banquet for our senior services last week. We had, I think we recognized 45 seniors that volunteer in Meals on Wheels and packing boxes and going and doing numerous things for our seniors, helping to serve meals in our senior centers, and that was a lot of fun. So much so, I suppose, that I got invited today to go be the speaker at the volunteer banquet for the hospital. So I'm going on a circuit if anybody needs my volunteer banquet services. One of the things that happened because of the listening sessions that I did at the senior living facilities is that I was here in a court hearing a couple of weeks ago, and I'm walking out the door, and a deputy comes chasing me, and that's never a comforting thing when somebody wearing a taser and a gun and a badge comes chasing you down the hall. Are you the new guy at Community? Yes, that's me, sir, that's me. And he said, hey, I just wanted to tell you, my mom was in one of those listening sessions, and that meant the world to her that you would ask how it's going. So that's kind of, you talked about, Nick from the Chambers talked about how there's a culture change. And that's one of the things that I'm really trying to do is listen across the county and across the programs that we do to hear how they're going for people. And that's been very interesting. We've done the same thing with our Garrett Transit service. I've talked to numerous groups in the county. How are we doing with public transportation? It makes all the difference with employment and school and entertainment for people who are living without transportation in the county. So those are things that we're underway. And by the way, one of our drivers at GTS won the state's bus rodeo and is going to the nationals down in Fort Lauderdale. Didn't know that was a thing, but there apparently is a public transportation rodeo. spelled ROAD. We have the Pathways to Homeownership every week that you all fund. Every week I sign one of those loan packages. And every time I sign one of those loan packages, it means that somebody's got their first-time home buyer. And we've done about 40 of those so far this year, and we hope to do a few more. We helped 2,400 homes in the county with energy assistance, and that's state dollars that are flowing in here, millions of dollars that flow in here. 2,400 of the county's 12,800 households have gotten help that way. We help with weatherization, HVAC projects, emergency water tank replacement, and it just goes on, the things that are happening under the roof at 104 East Center Street every day. So again, close to $20 million gets spent, but that $20 million brings in $3 million in state funding. It brings in over $8 million in federal funding, and it brings in almost $8 million in private grant funding. So those are kind of the big numbers. Let's start flipping through the thing real quick. I've just got a few slides. So the big struggle that we have is that the board, before I got here, by the way, sometime in October or November, we had been compressing wages as we kept the bottom people on the wage scale legal by meeting the minimum wage, but we didn't move anybody else because we didn't know what we could do financially. And so the bottom came up, and this group never moved. And so in October or November at the board meeting, they decided that they would give everybody a raise to get everybody back to having the separated wage scale. And while I'm completely in favor of that, by the way, it meant a $1.3 million increase to our budget, which is huge. But in today's job market, with the unemployment numbers what they are, the job market's very competitive, and we can't afford to lose people because the services that we perform are too important. And I hear all the time from staff that has been a game changer for them to have received those wages. And then, of course, the second thing that's kind of hit us is that, for 3 years we had all that COVID relief money, and you get used to it, right? And then it goes away. And so we're having to deal with it having gone away for this year. Flip over to the next thing. Thank you. So our request for this year is up a little bit, 6%. Up to $1.265 million. Our core, if you'll flip again, it'll show you. So our core ask has gone from $350,000 to $432,000, and that reflects an increase in wage. Again, it was just incredibly expensive to do that. The pathway to homeownership, we're asking for less money there, and that's reflective of the real numbers of people that it looks like we're going to be able to serve this year. So you gave us actually more than we asked for last year. We've just not been able to hit that number. So our total for that top section, total increase of $27,750, and then under aging, we've asked for an increase in senior services and administration. Again, that's all wages. Meals on Wheels, again, wages. And so the total for that was $46,900 for a total increase of $74,651 is the requested funding. Can you flip to the next one? Thank you. That being said, we've got 186 employees paying taxes here, living here. We pay lots of real estate taxes here with our multifamily units and whatnot. And so part of that comes back to the county in any case. And there's just the pie chart of what we receive from private, federal, state, and local from 2023. So that's just what the pie chart looks like. I suppose that in closing, I would say that the $1.2 million invested by the county certainly gets leveraged and turns into that $20 million, which is fantastic. But the real thing is the human capital. When you look at the changed lives, people who aren't on the street, I don't know what we would do in a county of 28,000 people where more than 6% of those people live in our housing, live in one of the 715 low-income subsidized housing units that we have. And that's all, it just takes a lot of resources to churn those wheels. So yeah, it's certainly a huge investment, and I recognize the budgetary restraints that you all have and that you need to show. And but it does become more, both in terms of dollars for the county and in terms of people, which is what it really comes down to for us. So, any questions?
Any questions?
What's the status of your grants from the state on the energy assistance this year? I've heard a lot of rumors about that.
So, qualifying for food stamps became an automatic qualifier for energy assistance, which drove up the number of people that were receiving energy assistance across the county and across the state. So the state ran through its money more quickly than it had anticipated, and in fact overspent by about $17 million statewide. And so put the brakes on it, and now we're in a situation where those dollars won't start again until July 1st. Fortunately, although it's not a huge amount, it will be incredibly helpful. TPC, the solar folks, made a donation to us a couple weeks ago of $10,000, and we have committed that toward energy assistance, so that even though we don't have state funds, and we certainly could have used that elsewhere, but the reality is, if somebody doesn't have their utilities paid, particularly in public housing, if you lose your utilities, then you also get evicted. So when somebody calls from one of the subsidized housing units, that's their reality. If they get their electric shut off, then Garrett Land evicts them, and that's not a Garrett Land thing. That's just a thing. that's what happens. So that's a huge priority for us, is to keep people in their housing, and utilities is a requirement for that.
What's in your crystal ball, what's the state's projection?
I
know that's asking a lot.
That's a fabulous question. I have no idea. I think I'm wondering if qualifying for SNAP will be an automatic qualifier for energy assistance going forward, as it was this year. It seemed like a good idea, because it would typically they are the same pool, largely the same pool of people, and so it's a staff saving thing for DHS, right? If you take somebody in and they qualify for SNAP, why send them across the hall to the other department? Well, now there may be a good reason to send them across the hall to the other department, but we'll see. I don't know what will happen.
Do you think it's hopeful?
I think that, yes, I think it's hopeful. And I also think one of the things that again, back to culture change, you all know Dwayne very well. You've worked with him for 43 years. Dwayne was always very reticent to publicize what we were doing, or ask for help with what we're doing. I'm shameless. Leah is our communications and marketing person, and we are going to be all over our digital platforms before long, saying, hey, there's a waiting list for Meals on Wheels, and this is what it would cost to take one person off the waiting list and get them meals, right? Because I don't think that Garrett County wants to have their neighbors who qualify and are on a waiting list to get food. I don't think people in Garrett County generally want to see their neighbors go without. The average home repair project, so that somebody can get a weatherization. You can't get weatherization if you have certain things wrong with your house. But our home repair division is incredibly underfunded. There just is no funding for it, really. And so So probably an average of around $7,500 per household in order to bring them up to the level of where we could qualify them to receive the weatherization services. So we're going to be on social media saying, hey, listen, for $7,500, you could change somebody's household. And I think people are going to respond. I really do. So that private funding number is going to go up. I think people respond very well when it's put like that. Here's your neighbor, they need this, and people are incredibly generous. I ran a homeless shelter for 10 years, and I just got to see the goodness of people constantly, and not just from outside of the homeless shelter, but the homeless folks themselves. Just the way, incredible. If you ever want to do your heart a favor, go work in a homeless shelter for a while. It's amazing. It's truly amazing. So yeah, I guess, so I'm hopeful that the state will do what the state does, but I'm also hopeful that we're going to be doing a bit more public asking here in the county, and I think people are going to respond to that. Any other questions?
Anything else? All right,
All
thanks,
right.
Chris.
Well, thank you all
Appreciate
very
it.
much. Appreciate you guys.
All right, see everybody in 2 weeks.